Hi, this is Dr. Rick Janelle, and I wanted to share some thoughts with you today about God's encouragement during a time of trouble. These words that I'm going to share with you come from the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is considered a keystone book in the study of the Old Testament today. It was covering a period that's roughly half the Assyrian period, half the Babylonian period. And the book itself is divided into three sections: a prophetic, a historic, and a messianic sections. But today I want us to look at the chapter that starts the Messianic section, which is chapter 40 and verse 1. And so let's look at some things that God has to say. The basic message found in this chapter is that we should trust in God even when all is hopeless. And so let's begin by looking at the first two verses of this chapter. Isaiah chapter 40, verses 1 and 2. God says, Comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her hard service has been completed, that her sin has been paid for, and that she has received from the Lord's hand double. There are some people today that are saying that the trouble we're facing now with this virus is God's punishment on an evil people. There are other people who are saying that the existence of this virus at all is proof that there is not a God, or if there is a God, that he doesn't care for us or he doesn't love us. And my belief is that neither of these is true. While I believe there are many things in my own personal life that I should be punished for, and I believe there are things that I see in our world today that are not good, I don't necessarily believe that it's God that's punishing people. It could be that he's trying to get his children's attention. I do that with my children and grandchildren sometimes. Sometimes I'll give them a harsh word, or I'll, spat their hand a little bit and say no in a harsh tone of voice, just to get their attention. But I don't think that the problem with this virus is something that God's saying, yes, I'm going to punish people for their evil. I don't believe that God works that way. I don't believe that's the way the universe is set up. I believe that there is a God in heaven, but I also believe that there is a Satan walking around as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And we do, as God's people, have an enemy. And in a sense, all humans were created in the image of God. And so as such, all humans are to an extent viewed by Satan as his enemy. If he can hurt us, if he can destroy us, if he can make God look bad, then that's just the way that it is. And he's fine with that. I'm talking about Satan being fine with that. But Isaiah says that we need to remember that there is a God in heaven, and that this God does care for us, and that he does love us, and that he wants us to have comfort. You say, well, why isn't he making me comfortable now? I don't really understand why that is. I do know that in my own life, comfort sometimes doesn't feel so comfortable unless it comes after a time of discomfort. For example, there's nothing better than ice cold, clear water after having worked all day in the garden or in the yard, or taking a hike or making a ride on the bike. When I get all hot and sweaty, that glass of water tastes so good. And there's nothing like laying your head on a pillow after a long, hard day's work. And yet it's almost as if that hard time has to set that up so that the comfort feels better. And I don't know why we're that way, but that seems to be the way that we are. Another thing we notice from the book of Isaiah chapter 40 is that God will make everything right. A voice of one calling, in the desert, prepare a way for the Lord. Make straight in the wilderness a highway for our God. Every valley shall be raised up, every mountain and hill made low, and the rough ground shall become level, and the rugged places a plain. And the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all mankind together will see it, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Now, I don't believe that this verse is saying that God is a heavy machinery operator and that he's a builder of physical roads with a physical bulldozer leveling the roadbed. But I do believe that it's giving a picture of how God does with life. See, I believe there is a God in heaven. And while there is evil in this world and bad things do happen, God promises us that when bad things happen, even the bad things will work for our good. And so God promises to make everything right. Now you say, well, preacher, how's he going to do this? I don't know. I can't explain how God is going to make it right. I can't explain how good is going to come from the hardship that so many people are facing in our country today. But I do believe that's what God said. And I do believe God because he's been faithful and true and just in my life. The third thing we find in Isaiah chapter 40 is that God can do anything. Isaiah says, "Do you not know? Have you not heard? Have you not been told from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He brings princes to naught and reduces the rulers of this world to nothing. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground than he blows on them and they wither, and a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. So to whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One? Lift your eyes, look to the heavens. Who created all of these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls them each by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing." And so one of the things that Isaiah reminds us here is that God can do anything. The things that seem impossible for humans, it's not a problem for God. Think about what your life was like just 2-3 weeks ago, 10 days for some of you. Think about the things that worried you then, and think about the things that you're worried about now. It's good to remember that the God that you serve can do anything. Now, does that mean he will do anything? No, not necessarily. Somebody says, well, if God is a really good God, why does he let bad things happen to good people? And there's all kinds of reasons for that, and maybe I'll talk about that in a future video. But the point is, what God can do and what he does do many times are two separate things. And why should that surprise us? The same thing is true for humans. The same thing is true for parents and grandparents and dealing with their children. There's lots of things that I could do for my grandchildren that I don't do. There's lots of things that I could do for my children, but I don't do them. Now, sometimes it's because of a weakness in my part or a lack of ability in my part. Sometimes what I choose not to do is because I think they need an experience, or they need to have more skin in the game, or whatever the situation might be. I might deem it necessary for them and for their good for me not to act, and for me not to give them too much, too easily, and too soon. You know, for my children and grandchildren, I'd give them the heart out of my chest, the lung out of my chest if they needed it. But they don't really need that. And so sometimes we need to remember that God can do anything, but sometimes he chooses not to do so for reasons that we either understand or don't understand. I'm convinced there's some things we'll never understand in this life, because the Bible says God's ways are not our ways, his thoughts are not our thoughts. And so it's not surprising that I don't understand. But you see, with God being as powerful as he is, I don't have to understand. So number 4 in this chapter, God makes a promise to his people. And he begins the promise by asking a question of the people that this was originally written to. He says, "Why do you say, O Jacob, and complain, O Israel? My way is hidden from the Lord. My cause is disregarded by my God. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." And so let me ask you the same question that God asked the people of the day of Isaiah. Why do you say my way is hidden? Why do you say that God has not noticed me? Why do you think that? Why do we tend to think that God has abandoned us and that nothing good can come from these things? Let me say to you what he said to them. Don't you know? Haven't you heard? There is a Lord that is the everlasting God. He created the ends of the earth. He doesn't get tired or weary. It's not that God has taken a nap and needs to be woken up so that he can jump to taking care of our problems today. That's not the situation at all. God promises that he will give strength to people. He will help people. He will give power to people who need power. And And by comparison, even young people have no strength or no endurance. God will help you soar up on wings like eagles. He'll help you run and not grow weary. He'll help you walk. God understands. And God will make everything right. Don't forget that God is so powerful He can do anything. And always remember, no matter how dim things seem in the moment, no matter how bad things seem today, God has promised His people that He has not forgotten them, that He will take care of them, and that all will be right in the world, but maybe not today. So this is Dr. Rick Janelle saying, be of good cheer. There is a God in heaven. The planet is full of His people who are trying to serve Him and live for Him and do His will. Don't be discouraged, and be a light and be salt in your family and your neighborhood today.